Quack, 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 quack. Quack, 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 quack. Quack, 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 quack. Quack, quack, quack. Quack, quack, quack. Quack, quack, quack. Quack, 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 quack. Quack, 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 quack. Quack, see. Quack, 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 quack. Quack, 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 quack. Quack. Quack, quack, quack. Excuse me, Miss Quack. Quack? You quack. You're speaking duck. Quack. Yeah, but K6 kids don't speak duck. Quack. Oh, quack, quack. Oh, quack. Quack. Quack forgot. Sorry. Hi, K6. Oh, have a good day. Hello, K6. How are you? Well, as Quack was supposed to tell you, today we're going to do chapter 3 of our story, right? He kind of forgot to speak the right language. Oh well, that's okay. You already knew that we were going to do chapter 3. Okay, so let's go way back to the beginning of the story to make sure we're all caught up, all right? So there's the king of Cambridge, and the king had a son, and the son's name was Anthony, so Prince Anthony. Prince Anthony wanted to be king. Ha! But there was a problem, right? Prince Anthony was kidnapped by the jealous Duke of Galt and thrown in the dungeon. Right? Terrible trouble. He was in the dungeon, captured. This king offered a reward to anyone who could rescue them. Lots of people tried, things went wrong, and Sydney, the little girl, our hero, came and said, I want to try too. And so Sydney, the little girl, and 3 friends went off to go try to rescue Prince Anthony. Who were the friends? Let's see if we remember. Do you? Okay, let's go over it. We got Sydney, the little girl, of course, and then there's Hespler, the monkey with a tongue like a frog, and Preston, the fish with no eyes, and Galt, the 3-legged duck. A duck with 3 legs. Okay, they went off and they got all the way towards near the castle and realized they needed the keys. And Monkey was the one who got the keys, right? But he couldn't get too close, so he needed the help of the duck. And the duck made a big distraction, which means he confused everyone. He made all that noise, and he smucked one of them in the head, and a big commotion and kerfuffle, and they stole the keys, with his tongue, of course, and then they opened the door and tiptoed into the castle. And that's when they met the royal chef. The big problem that we stopped with, because the royal chef needed something to cook for supper, and he saw the duck. So, duck is on the menu tonight. And Galt the duck should have been terrified, right? But Galt the duck walked right up to the chef. And he said something. And that's where I stopped. And I'll tell you in a minute what he said. But first, we need everyone to come. Okay, here we go. So Galt the duck walked right up to the chef. He's looking up at him, and the chef is looking down. And Galt says, Here, chef, take a leg. And Galt took one of his legs right off his body and gave it to the chef. The chef was very surprised. He thought he was going to have to chase the duck with his knife and his frying pan, and I thought it would be a lot of work. And this strange little duck had just come up and given him one of his legs. And of course, remember what was special about Galt? Yeah, I know there was a duck who talked. Yeah, that's kind of special and weird. That's not what matters. It's a duck whose best friends were a fish and a monkey and a little girl. That's weird too, but it's not what matters. What was strange about Galt? That's right. He had 3 legs. So when he gave the chef one of the legs, how many did he have left? 2 more. And so Galt the duck just walked away. Quack, quack. All right. So the group walked on down the hallway now that the chef was happy and cooking the extra duck leg. So they walked down the hallway, but they weren't sure which way to go. They were looking for the dungeon. It was Monkey who saw it. A sign. Sydney was definitely the only one who could read. Dungeon! And the sign pointed that way, and then a little bit down those stairs. So they went that way. Does it seem a little strange to have a sign in your castle that says dungeon? I think so too. Well, let me tell you something about the Duke of Galt. The Duke of Galt had signs for everything. He didn't want anyone to ever get lost in his castle. So he had signs made for everything. Absolutely everything. Every single hallway, it pointed to the kitchen, it pointed to the dungeon, it pointed to the bedroom, it pointed to the bed. Everything had a label. Everything was marked. You see, look at this. Pots had a label on them. See? Everyone. Pan. All of them. They said pan. And look. Even the knives and forks. Look at this. Look. Ah! We got spoons that say spoon. Fork says fork. Knife says knife. Everything in the castle had to have a label. It was ridiculous. But hard to get lost. Okay, so one day the Duke had even gone so far that he wanted all the pins in the castle to be labeled. The people in the royal workshop said, "That's ridiculous. We can't write the word on that. It's too small." And then they had an idea. They knew if they said no, the Duke would be very angry. So they didn't. They just said, "Okay, we're done." And give them back. The royal tailor, he didn't care. He just wanted his pins back. And the Duke, his eyes weren't good enough to be able to see. He didn't know it wasn't actually written there. They fooled them. So, the pins didn't really say pin. But I don't think that's a big problem. So that is why there was a sign for everything. Now the Duke wasn't finished. You see, everything in the kitchen was labeled, and he thought he had the pins labeled, and then he decided, I know, all the rice must be labeled too. Every grain of rice. Little grain of rice. All of them. He wanted them labeled. Grain. G-R-A-N. So the letter G-R-A-I-N. Written on every single little grain of rice. Everyone in the royal workshop rolled their eyes. Ugh. And then they realized, wait a second. There is a very famous craftsman, a very famous artist who lives in the distance. And it's said that he can carve anything out of a grain of rice. Maybe, rather than telling a lie again, like we did with the pins, maybe we should tell the truth. Maybe we should go find the craftsman, the artist, who can carve grains of rice, it said. And maybe he can carve the word grain into each grain of rice. So they went and found him. They brought him back to the castle, and they brought him in front of the Duke. And the Duke said, "Oh, I'm very glad that we have found you, because we understand that you can carve anything into a grain of rice, and we want you to carve the word grain into every single grain of rice." The craftsman looked up at the Duke. "Yeah, I guess I could do that." "Good," said the Duke. But what? It's going to take a while." "What? How long?" Well, you see, this is my carving I'm working on, and I've been working on it since I was a little boy. For 50 years. "What?" The Duke was angry. Everyone in the royal court went, "Oh, no." And the Duke was so angry that he banished the craftsman to the labyrinth. Do you know what a labyrinth is? I better tell you. Maybe I'll show you. Are you ready for the snapping fingers? We'll go see a labyrinth. You don't know what I mean. Okay. 1, 2, 3. So now that you know what a labyrinth is like, you can try to imagine what it would be like for the craftsman. Remember the artist? What it would be like for him to have to live there, to be banished and taken to the labyrinth to live. You would spend your whole life confused and lost, and eventually that turned him so horrible. It was so horrible. He turned into a horrible monster. Or at least that's what people said. And actually, talk about people saying stuff. The whole thing about the labels and the writing things on grains of rice and the craftsman, it actually shouldn't matter to the story. It's kind of like, see, grown-ups do this thing called tangents. So a tangent is when you start, grown-ups or someone starts talking about something and blah, 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 and they forget what they were actually supposed to be talking about, and they go blah, 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 and talk about, and then go, "Oh, I guess that didn't actually matter. I was supposed to talk about that." And that's what Sydney thought too. Sydney thought, it doesn't matter about the grain of rice. I'm going to the dungeon, right? You know, Sydney doesn't care about the grain. She doesn't matter to the story. She's going to the dungeon, right? That's what she thought. So they're tiptoeing down the hall, and coming the other way is a soldier, also tiptoeing. Sydney and her friends are tiptoeing towards the dungeon, and the soldier's coming the other way, tiptoeing towards the royal kitchen to steal some cookies. And suddenly, whoa, and the soldier grabbed Sydney, grabbed Galt the duck, grabbed the fish, fish, and grabbed Monkey by the tail. "Oh, I've got you. Where do you think you're going?" Down there?" "Oh, no, you're not. I've got you now." Sydney looked up at the soldier. It's very strange. The soldier did not look like you would expect. The soldier had a huge, fuzzy pink hat and big, fluffy feathers. What? And he had a big, round, painted red nose like a clown. And Sydney looked down and he had enormous shoes, kind of like a clown, and a pink, polka-dotted, purple necktie. What? And then the soldier looked at Sydney, who was looking up, and went, What? And then the soldier went, what? Sydney was very confused. What? Why is the soldier acting like this? Because I'm terribly funny. Yeah? I don't get it. Oh, doesn't matter if you understand or not. I've captured you and I'm giving you a job. You have to go to the labyrinth. In the labyrinth, there is a craftsman who's carving a grain of rice into a sculpture. He must be finished by now, and his sculpture, I want you to take it, to get it, and bring it to me. You see, the soldier had an idea that the craftsman's grain of rice that he was carving would be finished by then, and that he could be sold for money. Lots of money. So he was sending Sydney and her friends down into the labyrinth to steal the grain of rice for him, bring it back, and the soldier would sell it for lots of money. Thought it was a good idea. Think it might work? I don't know. To wait till tomorrow to find out.